General Kane's fleet arrived at Earth, exactly when Zara predicted. 12 massive warships appeared in the sky, above major cities around the world. Each ship was the size of a skyscraper, dark metal covered with weapon ports and armor plating. Jake and Zara watched the news broadcasts from their hidden cave. Every channel showed the same terrifying sight: alien warships hovering over New York, London, Tokyo, and other major cities. The ships made no aggressive moves, but their message was clear. Earth was now under siege. Then came Kane's transmission to Earth's leaders. His face appeared on every screen across the planet. He looked human except for red eyes and pale gray skin. When he spoke, his voice was cold and emotionless. "People of Earth," Kane said, "I am General Kane of the Vorthan Empire. You are harboring a fugitive from imperial justice. Princess Zara of the Alterian Empire is a criminal who must be returned to face her crimes." Jake snorted. "Criminal? She ran away from a forced marriage." Kane continued his message. "You have 24 hours to surrender the princess to my forces. If you comply, no harm will come to your planet. If you refuse, I will demonstrate the price of defying the Vorthan Empire." The transmission ended, leaving Earth's leaders with an impossible choice. Captain Hayes contacted Jake and Zara within the hour. "The World Council is meeting now," she said. "They're seriously considering handing you over, Princess." "I understand," Zara said quietly. "They must protect their people." "Like hell," Jake said. "Kane is lying. Even if they give you up, he'll still attack Earth. You said yourself he's acting without authorization." "Jake is correct," Zara said. "Kane seeks to conquer your world. I am merely his excuse." "Then we fight," Captain Hayes said. "But we need help. Our weapons can't penetrate their shields." "I can help with that," Zara said. "But we need time to prepare." Jake had an idea. "Captain, can you stall Kane for a few more hours? Tell him Earth's leaders need time to debate." "I can try. What are you planning?" "Something Kane won't expect." Jake's plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of trying to fight Kane's fleet directly, they would force the aliens to come down to Earth's surface. And once they were on the ground, Jake could use the same tactics that had worked against the scouts. But first, they needed allies. Jake contacted his friend Danny Clark, the local sheriff. Danny had served in the army with Jake and knew how to handle himself in a fight. "Jake, are you serious?" Danny said over the radio. "You want me to help fight aliens? I know it sounds crazy, but Earth needs all the help it can get. These aren't friendly visitors, Danny. They're conquerors." Danny was quiet for a moment. "What do you need me to do?" "Gather anyone who can fight. Hunters, park rangers, anyone who knows these mountains. Tell them to bring whatever weapons they have." Within hours, Danny had assembled a group of 20 volunteers. They were mostly local men and women who had hunting experience or military backgrounds. It wasn't much of an army, but they knew the terrain. Jake also reached out to Sue Williams, who ran the local auto repair shop. Sue was one of the best mechanics in the state and had access to heavy equipment. "Sue, I need you to help us build some defenses," Jake said. "Against aliens?" "Jake, what can a bunch of trucks and bulldozers do against spaceships? Trust me. We're not fighting spaceships. We're fighting soldiers." Sue brought her crew and several pieces of heavy machinery to Jake's area. Working through the night, they created hidden bunkers and defensive positions throughout the forest. They used mining explosives to create rock slides that could block mountain passes and dug tunnels that would allow Jake's people to move unseen. Zara worked with a local electronics expert, a young man named Pete Davis, who ran the town's radio station. Together, they modified Earth technology with Alterian knowledge. "This is incredible," Pete said as Zara showed him how to boost their communication range. Your science is centuries ahead of ours. Perhaps, Zara said, but your people think in ways mine never would. Jake has taught me that advanced technology means nothing without creative thinking. By dawn, they had transformed the peaceful mountain valley into a hidden fortress. But Jake knew it still wouldn't be enough against Kane's superior forces. They needed to even the odds somehow. That's when Zara made her proposal. I will contact Kane directly, she said. I will challenge him to single combat. Absolutely not, Jake said. He'll kill you. Perhaps. But Vorthan culture demands that he accept such a challenge. It is a matter of honor. I thought you said honor was overrated, Jake said. Zara smiled. I did, but Kane does not know that. Against Jake's protests, Zara sent her challenge to Kane's flagship. The response came within minutes. Kane's face appeared on their communication screen, and his red eyes burned with anger. You dare challenge me, Princess? Kane said. Very well. I accept. But when I defeat you, I will execute every human who helped you. If you defeat me, Zara said calmly, I will surrender willingly. But if I win, you will leave Earth and never return. Kane laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. You will not win, Princess. I will face you at sunset in the valley below your hiding place. Come alone, or I will destroy the nearest human city. The transmission ended. Jake turned to Zara, his face pale. You can't do this, he said. Kane is twice your size and has years of combat experience. I know, Zara said. But this challenge will force him to land his personal guard on Earth's surface. And once they are on the ground, double quotes, Jake understood. We take them out while they're distracted by the fight. Exactly. Your guerrilla tactics will work against ground forces, even elite ones. As sunset approached, Jake positioned his volunteers around the valley where the duel would take place. Danny and his team took positions in the rocks above. Sue's crew prepared their heavy equipment for a surprise attack. Pete coordinated communications from a hidden bunker. Kane's shuttle landed in the center of the valley just as the sun touched the horizon. The general stepped out, wearing black armor and carrying a weapon that looked like a sword made of energy. Behind him came 12 elite guards, the best warriors in his fleet. Zara walked out to meet Kane. She looked small and fragile compared to the massive general. Jake wanted to run to her side, but he forced himself to stay hidden and trust the plan. Princess Zara, Kane said, his voice echoing across the valley. You have led me on quite a chase, but it ends now. Yes, Zara said, it does. Kane raised his energy sword, and the blade hummed with deadly power. Zara drew her own weapon, a curved blade that glowed with blue light. The duel began. Kane was strong and experienced, but Zara was faster. She dodged his first attack and landed a glancing blow on his arm. Kane roared with anger and pressed his assault. While the two warriors fought, Jake gave the signal to his hidden forces. Danny's team opened fire on Kane's guards from the rocks above. The aliens were caught completely off guard, expecting to watch a simple duel. Sue's crew attacked with bulldozers and dump trucks, using the heavy vehicles as weapons against the alien soldiers. Pete jammed their communications, preventing them from calling for help from the ships above. The battle was chaos. Energy weapons fired in all directions as Kane's elite guards tried to fight enemies they couldn't see. Jake moved through the forest like a ghost, picking off isolated aliens with his rifle. In the center of the valley, Zara and Kane continued their deadly dance. The general's strength was wearing her down, but she fought with determination that impressed even Jake. Then Kane made a mistake. In his anger at the ambush, he left himself open for just a moment. Zara's blade found the gap in his armor, and Kane fell to his knees with a cry of pain. Yield, Zara said, her sword at Kane's throat. Kane looked around the valley. Half his guards were down, and the rest were trapped by Jake's forces. His perfect plan had been destroyed by primitive humans, using tactics no civilized warrior would consider. I yield, Kane said through gritted teeth, but the battle wasn't over. High above, Kane's fleet was preparing to fire on the valley despite their general's defeat. Jake could see the weapon ports opening on the massive ship's dot, and new ships appeared. In Earth's sky, sleek vessels with blue and silver hulls dropped out of hyperspace and took positions between Kane's fleet and the planet. Prince Alex, Zara said with relief, speaking into her communicator. Brother, you arrived just in time. Prince Alex's voice came through clearly. Sister, are you safe? I am well, and I have learned much about honor from the humans who protected me. General Kane, Prince Alex said, addressing the defeated warrior, you are under arrest for unauthorized military action and violation of imperial law. Your forces will surrender immediately. Kane's ships were outnumbered now. Faced with official Alterian forces, they had no choice but to give up. The siege of Earth was over. As Kane was led away in chains, he looked back at Jake with hatred in his red eyes. This is not over, human, Kane said. Others will come. Jake met his stare calmly. Let them come. Earth will be ready. The crisis had passed, but Jake knew everything had changed. Earth was no longer isolated. They were part of a larger galaxy. Now, with all the dangers and opportunities that brought. And somehow, Jake had become one of the people responsible for guiding humanity into this new future. 3 days after Kane's defeat, Prince Alex's flagship landed in the valley where the battle had taken place. The massive ship was beautiful, with curved lines and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. It was completely different from Kane's dark, threatening warships. Jake stood with Zara as her brother stepped off the ship. Prince Alex looked similar to his sister, with the same blue-tinted skin and silver hair, but he was taller and wore formal robes that marked his royal status. Sister, Alex said, embracing Zara warmly, when we received your signal, I feared the worst. I am alive because of Jake Miller and his people, Zara said. Brother, meet the human who saved my life and helped defeat Kane. Prince Alex studied Jake with intelligent golden eyes. So you are the human who has caused such a stir in the Empire. My sister's messages spoke highly of your courage and tactical skills. Jake felt uncomfortable with the formal attention. I just did what anyone would do, Your Highness. Alex smiled. Please, call me Alex. And no, Jake Miller, what you did was extraordinary. You defeated Vorthan elite forces using primitive weapons and unconventional tactics. The military academies will study this battle for years. Behind Alex came a group of Alterian officials and several humans, including Captain Hayes from Earth Defense Command. The captain looked amazed by everything she was seeing. Jake, Captain Hayes said, I wanted to thank you personally. What you did here saved Earth from invasion. We all did it together, Jake said, gesturing to Danny, Sue, Pete, and the other volunteers who had joined the fight. Prince Alex nodded approvingly. Yes, I have heard about your cooperative tactics. This is very different from how wars are usually fought in our empire. Over the next few hours, Jake found himself in the middle of complex diplomatic discussions. Earth's leaders wanted to establish formal relations with the Alterian Empire. The Alterians were fascinated by human military tactics and wanted to learn more about Earth's culture. But the most important conversation happened when Alex spoke privately with Jake and Zara. Sister, Alex said, Father has agreed to cancel your arranged marriage to Kane, given Kane's crimes. The political alliance is no longer necessary. Zara looked relieved. And what of my future? Am I free to choose my own path? That depends. Alex said with a smile. By imperial law, you have declared Jake Miller as your chosen mate. Do you wish to formalize this bond? Jake felt his face grow hot. Look, I don't want to cause any political problems. Zara doesn't have to marry me just because of some law. Zara took his hand. Jake Miller, you have shown me what true courage and honor look like. In your actions, I have seen strength without cruelty, leadership without domination. If you will have me, I choose you not because of law, but because of love. Jake looked into her golden eyes and saw sincerity there. Over the past week, he had come to care deeply for this brave alien princess who had changed his simple life forever. Yes, Jake said simply. I choose you too. Alex clapped his hands together. Excellent. This will be the first human-Alterian bonding in history. The ceremony will be remembered for generations. But there were still practical matters to discuss. Where would they live? What role would Jake play in the Empire? How would Earth fit into galactic politics? I have a proposal, Alex said. Jake, would you consider serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Alterian Empire? Your victory over Kane has earned you respect throughout our military. Many worlds would benefit from learning your tactical innovations. Jake thought about this. A week ago, he had been a simple mountain man who just wanted to be left alone. Now he was being offered a chance to represent his entire planet in galactic affairs. What would that mean exactly? Jake asked. You would split your time between Earth and our capital world, Alex explained. You would help establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. Earth would become a full member of our alliance of free worlds. Captain Hayes leaned forward. Jake, this could be huge for humanity. We'd gain access to advanced technology, new trade partners, protection from hostile forces. And we would gain access to human tactical thinking and cultural perspectives, Alex added. Your species has something unique to offer the galaxy. Jake looked at Zara. What do you think? I think, Zara said, that you could help both our peoples learn from each other. You have already shown me that strength comes in many forms. Jake made his decision. All right, I'll do it. But I want to keep my cabin here in Montana. This will always be home. Of course, Alex said. Even ambassadors need a place to retreat and think. The formal ceremonies took place a week later. Jake and Zara were bonded in a ceremony that combined human and Alterian traditions. The wedding was broadcast across both Earth and the Empire, watched by billions of beings. Danny served as Jake's best man, while Sue and Pete helped organize the reception. Half the guests were human, half were alien, but everyone seemed to get along well. Jake was amazed at how quickly the two species began learning from each other. Captain Hayes was promoted to head Earth's new Interstellar Relations Department. Danny became the sheriff of what was now officially designated as Earth's first interstellar contact zone. Sue got contracts to help build Earth's first starship construction facility. Pete started the galaxy's first interspecies communication network. But perhaps the most important change was in how Earth saw itself. No longer were humans alone in the universe. They were part of a vast community of intelligent species with their own unique contributions to make. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of an Alterian starship, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. He and Zara were traveling to the Empire's capital for his first major diplomatic mission. Do you ever regret saving me from that crash? Zara asked, joining him at the window. Jake smiled and put his arm around his wife. Never. Best decision I ever made. Even though it ended your quiet life in the mountains? I still have the cabin, Jake said, and I still get to live a simple life sometimes. But now I also get to see the galaxy and help two different peoples understand each other better. Zara leaned against him. The Empire's military academies are already teaching courses based on your tactics. They call it the Miller Doctrine, using terrain, psychology, and unconventional thinking to defeat superior forces. That sounds way too fancy for what we did, Jake said. We just used common sense and worked together. That is exactly what makes it so effective, Zara said. And so human. Through the window, they could see their destination ahead, the Alterian capital world, a planet of crystal cities and floating gardens. But Jake's mind was already working on the problems they would face there. The Empire was at war with several hostile species, and traditional tactics weren't working. Maybe it was time to show the galaxy what human creativity could accomplish on a larger scale. As their ship entered orbit around the capital world, Jake thought about the strange path that had brought him here. A simple rescue in the Montana wilderness had led to first contact, interstellar war, marriage to an alien princess, and a new career as a galactic diplomat. It was a lot more complicated than his old life. But Jake had to admit it was never boring. And somewhere in the galaxy, on planets he had never heard of, military officers were studying reports of the Battle of Montana Valley. They were learning that sometimes the most primitive tactics could defeat the most advanced technology. They were discovering that cooperation could accomplish what individual strength could not. They were learning to think like humans. Jake Miller had wanted a quiet, simple life in the mountains. Instead, he had become the man who taught the galaxy a new way to fight, a new way to think, and a new way to understand what it meant to be truly strong. As their ship descended toward the capital, Jake squeezed Zara's hand and prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them. Together, they would show the galaxy that love could bridge any gap between species, and that sometimes the greatest victories came not from advanced weapons, but from the courage to do what was right. The quiet mountain man had become a symbol of human potential, and this was just the beginning of their story. Jake woke up to the sound of his radio crackling with emergency broadcasts. The local news station was reporting strange lights in the sky and what they called unusual aircraft near the Canadian border. Jake knew those weren't aircraft at all. Zara was already awake, standing by the window and looking up at the morning sky. Her injuries were healing faster than any humans would, but she still moved carefully. "They are here," she said quietly. "I can feel their ships in the atmosphere." Jake joined her at the window. The sky looked normal, but he trusted Zara's senses more than his own eyes. "We need to contact someone," Jake said. "Earth has to know what's coming." Zara shook her head. "Your planet's defenses are not prepared for Kane's forces. His ships are designed for war. Earth's vessels are built for exploration." Jake thought about this. Earth had a small space defense force, but Zara was right. They were explorers and scientists, not soldiers. "Maybe not," Jake said, "but they need to know anyway." He used Zara's modified radio to contact Earth Defense Command. It took an hour to convince them he wasn't crazy, but eventually they put him through to Captain Lisa Hayes, the commanding officer of Earth's Orbital Defense Station. "Mr. Miller," Captain Hayes said over the radio, "this is highly irregular. You're claiming to have an alien refugee in your cabin?" "Yes, ma'am. Princess Zara of the Alterian Empire. She's being hunted by someone called General Kane." There was a long pause. "Can I speak to this alien princess?" Jake handed the radio to Zara. She spoke clearly and calmly, explaining the situation. She told Captain Hayes about Kane's fleet and warned that Earth was now in danger. "Princess Zara, Captain," Hayes said, "our sensors have detected several unknown ships entering our solar system. Are these the forces you mentioned?" "Yes. Kane will demand that you surrender me to him. If you refuse, he will attack your planet." Another pause. "How long do we have?" "His main fleet will arrive in 18 hours. but his scout ships are already here, searching for me. Jake could hear other voices in the background as Captain Hayes talked to her officers. When she came back on the radio, her voice was grim. Princess Zara, Mr. Miller, we're going to need your help. Can you make it to our base? Jake looked at Zara, who shook her head. Too dangerous, she said. Kane's scouts will be watching all major human settlements. We'll have to stay here, Jake told Captain Hayes, but we can help from here. Zara knows their technology and tactics. Understood. We'll maintain radio contact. Good luck. After the call ended, Jake started preparing for trouble. He had weapons from his army days, including a rifle and several boxes of ammunition. He also had equipment for wilderness survival that might come in handy. Zara watched him work. You are preparing to fight? If I have to, Jake said. This is my planet, and you're under my protection now. Kane's soldiers are trained warriors with advanced weapons. You cannot defeat them in open combat. Jake smiled grimly. Then we won't fight them in open combat. This is my territory, Zara. I know every tree, every rock, every hiding place in these mountains. They don't. Zara looked puzzled. You would use stealth and deception instead of facing them with honor? Honor doesn't stop bullets, Jake said. Sometimes the smart move is better than the brave move. This was a new concept for Zara. In her culture, warriors always faced their enemies directly. But as she watched Jake prepare his defenses, she began to understand that humans had their own kind of courage. That afternoon, they spotted the first scout ship. It was sleek and silver, about the size of a small airplane. It flew low over the forest, scanning with beams of blue light. Jake and Zara hid in a cave behind his cabin that Jake had discovered years ago. From there, they could watch the ship without being seen. They're looking for your energy signature, Jake whispered. Yes, but the cave has natural minerals that will block their scanners. The ship made several passes over the area before moving on, but Jake knew it would be back. That evening, 3 Vorthan soldiers landed near Jake's cabin. Jake watched them through binoculars from a ridge above the clearing. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and black armor. They carried weapons that looked like rifles, but glowed with energy. Energy weapons, Zara explained quietly. Very powerful, but they have limited range and take time to recharge. Jake nodded. That was useful information. Got the soldiers searched Jake's cabin roughly, breaking furniture and equipment. When they didn't find what they were looking for, they set up a camp outside and waited. They know I was here, Zara said. They will wait for me to return. Then we don't return, Jake said. We make them come to us. That night, Jake put his plan into action. He knew these mountains better than anyone. He had spent years hiking every trail and exploring every valley. The aliens might have superior technology, but Jake had something they didn't. Home field advantage. He started by cutting the soldiers off from their ship. While they slept, Jake crept down to their landing site and planted explosives from his old mining equipment around their vessel. He didn't destroy it, but he damaged the engines enough to keep it grounded. Next, he began what the army had taught him to call psychological warfare. Jake knew how to move through the forest without making a sound. He used this skill to get close to the alien camp and then create small disturbances. A broken branch here, a moved rock there. Nothing obvious, but enough to make the soldiers nervous. On the second night, Jake took out their first sentry. The soldier was standing guard at the edge of camp when Jake approached from behind. One quick blow with a heavy stick, and the alien was unconscious. Jake dragged him away and tied him up in a hidden cave. The other 2 soldiers found their companion missing in the morning. They were clearly agitated, speaking rapidly in their alien language and scanning the forest with their weapons. They are afraid, Zara said with surprise. Vorthan soldiers are never afraid. Everyone's afraid when they can't see their enemy, Jake said. That day, Jake used hunting traps to take out the second soldier. A snare hidden on a game trail caught the alien's foot and left him hanging upside down from a tree. By the time his companion found him, Jake had already moved to a new position. The last soldier was clearly panicking now. He called for backup on his communication device, but Jake had learned enough about their technology from Zara to jam the signal with his modified radio. On the third night, Jake approached the final soldier directly. The alien was so nervous. He was firing his energy weapon at shadows. When Jake stepped out of the forest with his hands raised, the soldier almost shot him out of pure fear. "I want to talk," Jake said calmly. The soldier kept his weapon trained on Jake, but didn't fire. Jake could see the confusion in the alien's eyes. This wasn't how battles were supposed to work. Where was the honor? Where was the direct confrontation? "Your friends are alive but captured," Jake continued. "You can join them, or you can leave. Your choice." The soldier looked around the dark forest, probably imagining human warriors hiding behind every tree. Without lowering his weapon, he backed toward his damaged ship. "Tell your General Kane that Princess Zara is under human protection," Jake called after him. "If he wants her, he'll have to go through us." The soldier reached his ship and managed to get it flying despite the damage Jake had caused. It limped away into the night sky. Zara came out of hiding and joined Jake in the clearing. She looked at him with new respect. "You defeated 3 trained Vorthan soldiers without killing any of them," she said. "I told you, sometimes the smart move is better than the brave move. In my culture, we would call this dishonorable. But I am beginning to think my culture is wrong about many things." Jake smiled. "Different doesn't mean wrong, just different." But their victory was short-lived. The next morning, Captain Hayes contacted them with bad news. "Jake, Zara, we've got problems. Long-range sensors show a massive fleet approaching Earth. 12 warships, heavily armed. They'll be here in 6 hours. Jake felt his stomach sink. 3 scouts had been difficult enough. How could they possibly handle 12 warships? "General Kane's main force," Zara said grimly. "He will not underestimate humans again." Jake looked up at the peaceful morning sky and tried to imagine it filled with alien warships. Everything was about to change. "Then we better get ready," he said. Jake carried the unconscious alien woman into his cabin and laid her gently on his bed. She was lighter than he expected, but her skin felt warm and normal to the touch. Except for the blue tint and silver hair, she could almost pass for human. He cleaned the cut on her forehead with water and bandaged it with supplies from his first aid kit. Her breathing was steady, and her pulse felt strong. Jake had treated enough injured people in the army to know she would be okay. While she slept, Jake sat in his kitchen and tried to make sense of what had happened. Real aliens existed. One was sleeping in his bed right now, and somehow Jake had become the first human to make contact with them. He looked at his old radio and wondered if he should call someone. But who? The local sheriff would think he was crazy. The government would probably take the alien away and ask Jake a million questions. For now, he decided to wait and see what happened when she woke up. It was 3 hours before the alien woman opened her eyes. Jake was sitting in a chair next to the bed, reading a book by lamplight. When she stirred, he set the book aside and leaned forward. "How are you feeling?" Jake asked softly. The woman looked at him with bright gold eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. She said something in her alien language. The words sounded musical, like singing, but Jake couldn't understand any of it. The woman frowned and touched something on her wrist. It looked like a bracelet made of the same material as her clothes. She pressed a small button, and suddenly the bracelet began to glow with soft blue light. "Can you understand me now?" she asked. Her voice still had a musical quality, but now she was speaking perfect English. Jake's eyes widened. "Yes, I can understand you. That thing translates languages?" "It is a universal translator," the woman said. She sat up slowly, wincing from her injuries. "It learns new languages by listening to speech patterns and comparing them to known languages in its database." "That's amazing," Jake said. "I'm Jake Miller, by the way. What's your name?" The woman studied his face for a moment. "I am Princess Zara of the Altarian Empire. You saved my life, Jake Miller." Jake felt his stomach drop. A princess. He had rescued an alien princess. This was getting more complicated by the minute. "Princess?" Jake said. "I'm sorry. I don't know the proper way to address alien royalty. Should I bow or something?" Zara smiled for the first time since waking up. "You risked your own life to save mine. You have earned the right to speak to me as an equal." Jake relaxed a little. "What happened to your ship? Why did you crash here?" Zara's smile faded. "I was fleeing from my homeworld. My father arranged a marriage for me with General Kane of the Vorthan Empire. It was a political alliance, but Kane is cruel and violent. I could not accept such a fate." "So you ran away?" "I was traveling to a neutral planet where I could claim sanctuary, but someone sabotaged my ship's navigation system. I was lucky to survive the crash." Jake poured a glass of water from a pitcher on the bedside table and handed it to Zara. She drank gratefully. "This place," Zara said, looking around the simple cabin, "it is very different from what I expected. Your people have achieved space travel, but you live without advanced technology." Jake laughed. "I'm not exactly typical. Most humans live in cities with all kinds of technology. I chose to live out here because I like the simple life." "Simple," Zara repeated, as if the word was foreign to her. "In my empire, simplicity is seen as weakness. We compete constantly to show our strength and power." "That sounds exhausting." Jake said. Zara looked surprised. "You do not wish to demonstrate your superiority over others?" "Not really. I just want to be left alone to live my life the way I choose." This seemed to fascinate Zara. She asked Jake many questions about human culture and was amazed to learn that humans could choose their own mates and careers. In her empire, everything was decided by family and social rank. "Your species values individual freedom," Zara said. "This is unusual." Jake started a fire in the fireplace and cooked a simple dinner of soup and bread. Zara watched him work with curiosity. "You prepare your own food?" she asked. "Of course. How else would I eat?" "In my empire, servants handle such tasks. Members of the royal family do not perform manual labor." Jake handed her a bowl of soup. "Well, you're welcome to help if you want. I could use someone to chop vegetables." Zara stared at the bowl. "You wish me to work?" "I am a princess. You're also a guest in my home," Jake said gently. "Everyone helps out here." To Jake's surprise, Zara smiled again. "Very well. I will learn your human customs." After dinner, Jake set up a communication device he had built from old radio parts. It wasn't much, but it could send signals into space. "Can this contact your people?" Jake asked. Zara examined the crude device. "It is very primitive, but yes. I can modify it to send a signal on our frequencies." She worked on the radio with tools from Jake's workshop. Her hands moved with quick precision, and soon she had transformed the simple device into something far more advanced. "There," Zara said. "This should be able to reach my brother's ship. Prince Alex commands a fleet in this sector." She sent the signal and sat back to wait for a response. While they waited, Zara continued to ask questions about human society. Humans really choose their own mates? She asked. Yes, Jake said. We call it love. We marry the person who makes us happy. In my culture, when someone saves a member of the royal family, they earn the right to claim that person as their mate, Zara said quietly. Jake felt his face get hot. Oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't trying to claim anything. I just wanted to help. Zara looked at him with those golden eyes. I know. That is what makes you remarkable, Jake Miller. You asked for nothing in return for saving my life. Before Jake could respond, the radio crackled to life. A deep voice spoke in the alien language, and Zara responded quickly. It is my brother, she explained to Jake. He is 3 days away. But there is bad news. Kane is also looking for me, and he has tracked my ship's signal to this planet. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Is he dangerous? Very dangerous. Kane commands a battle fleet. If he reaches Earth before my brother does, he will destroy anyone who has helped me. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the peaceful mountain night looked the same as always. But somewhere up in the dark sky, alien warships were coming to Earth. How long do we have? Jake asked. Perhaps 2 days, Zara said. I am sorry, Jake Miller. By saving me, you have brought danger to your world. Jake turned back to her. That's not your fault. You didn't ask to be hunted. My people will remember what you have done, Zara said. If we survive this, you will be honored throughout the Empire. I don't care about honor, Jake said. I just want to keep you safe. Zara stared at him for a long moment. In her culture, strength and honor were everything. But this human was different. He showed strength through kindness and honor, through selflessness. Jake Miller, she said softly, by the laws of my people and by my own choice, I name you as my chosen mate. Jake's eyes widened. Zara, you don't have to do that. I told you, I didn't save you to claim any reward. I know, Zara said. That is exactly why you are worthy of the title. Outside the cabin, the first alien scout ships entered Earth's atmosphere. The hunt for Princess Zara had begun. Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his face as he loaded the last box of supplies into his old pickup truck. The sun was getting low in the Montana sky, and he wanted to get back to his cabin before dark. The nearest town was 40 miles away through rough mountain roads, and Jake had learned not to drive them at night. He had lived alone in the mountains for 3 years now. After leaving the army, Jake wanted peace and quiet. His small cabin sat next to a clear stream, far from any other people. He fixed old machines for the few neighbors he had, and worked as a guide for hunters who came to the area. It was a simple life, and Jake liked it that way. The truck's engine coughed as Jake started it up. The old vehicle was almost as old as he was, but Jake kept it running with spare parts and determination. He knew every bolt and wire in that truck. Growing up on a farm had taught him how to fix things, and the army had taught him how to fix them. Fast Jake drove slowly down the mountain road. The trees were thick on both sides, and deer often crossed without warning. He had the radio on low, playing country music from the town's small station. The DJ was talking about some space mission that had launched from Earth's new orbital station. Jake didn't pay much attention. Space travel was for rich people and scientists, not for mountain men like him. That's when he saw the light dot at first. Jake thought it was lightning. A bright flash lit up the whole sky, turning night into day for just a moment. But there was no thunder, and the sky had been clear all evening. Jake slowed the truck and looked up through the windshield. A streak of fire was falling from the sky. It looked like a shooting star, but much bigger and brighter. The burning object flew over Jake's truck and crashed somewhere in the forest ahead. The ground shook, and his truck's windows rattled from the impact. Jake stopped the truck and got out. In the distance, he could see orange light glowing between the trees. Something was burning in there. His first thought was forest fire. These mountains were dry in late summer, and any spark could start a blaze that would burn for weeks. But as Jake watched, the light changed. Instead of the wild, dancing flames of burning trees, this light was steady and blue-white. It pulsed like a heartbeat, getting brighter and dimmer in a regular pattern. Jake grabbed his backpack from the truck. Inside were basic tools, a first aid kit, and a flashlight. If someone had crashed a small plane out there, they might need help. And if it was just a meteor, he still needed to make sure it wasn't starting a fire. The walk through the forest was difficult. Jake had to push through thick brush and climb over fallen logs. The strange light got brighter as he got closer. Soon he could hear sounds too. Not the crackling of fire, but a high-pitched whining noise, like an electric motor. Running too fast. After 20 minutes of walking, Jake reached a small clearing. What he saw there made him stop and stare. It was not a plane. It was not a meteor either. In the middle of the clearing sat something that looked like a metal egg, about the size of a small car. The surface was smooth and silver, with no seams, or bolts that Jake could see. Blue light pulsed from lines that ran around the object like veins. Parts of the metal were bent and torn, and sparks shot out from the damaged areas. Jake had never seen anything like it, but he knew what it had to be. This was a spaceship, a real alien spaceship. He stood at the edge of the clearing for a long moment, not sure what to do. Then he heard something that made his decision for him. From inside the damaged ship came a weak cry for help. It sounded almost human, but not quite. Jake's training kicked in. Someone was hurt, and that was all that mattered. He ran across the clearing to the ship. Up close, he could see that part of the hull had been torn open. The metal edges were still hot, but there was a gap big enough for a person to crawl through. The whining sound was getting louder and higher. Jake didn't know much about spaceships, but he knew the sound of machinery about to break down. Whatever was making that noise, it didn't sound good. Jake shined his flashlight through the opening. Inside, he could see a small room with strange curved walls. Lights blinked on panels he didn't understand. And lying on the floor was a person. At least, Jake thought it was a person. She had 2 arms and 2 legs, and her face looked human. But her skin had a pale blue tint, and her hair was silver like starlight. She wore clothes made of material that seemed to shine with its own light. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead, bright red just like human blood. The woman's eyes opened. As Jake's light hit her face, she looked at him with confusion and fear. She said something in a language Jake had never heard before. Her voice was weak, and she tried to sit up, but fell back down. The whining sound suddenly got much louder. Jake looked around the small ship and saw what was making the noise. A cylindrical device in the center of the room was glowing white-hot. Cracks were spreading across its surface, and the light inside was getting brighter. Jake didn't know what the device was, but every instinct told him it was dangerous. Very dangerous. He crawled through the opening into the ship. The alien woman looked at him with wide eyes as he approached. Jake pointed to himself and said slowly, "Jake, my name is Jake." Then he pointed to the opening and made a gesture that meant they had to leave. The woman seemed to understand. She nodded and tried to stand, but her leg was hurt, and she couldn't. Put weight on it. Jake didn't hesitate. He scooped her up in his arms and carried her toward the opening. The whining sound became a scream. Jake squeezed through the gap in the hull with the woman in his arms. As soon as they were outside, he ran as fast as he could toward the tree line. Behind them, the ship exploded. The blast knocked Jake forward, and he rolled on the ground to protect the woman he was carrying. Heat washed over them like opening. an oven door. When Jake looked back, the ship was gone. In its place was a crater 10 feet wide, glowing with melted rock. The alien woman was unconscious again, but she was breathing. Jake checked her for serious injuries and found only cuts and bruises. Her leg was sprained, but not broken. As he carried her back through the forest to his truck, Jake's mind raced. He had just saved an alien's life, a real alien from another world. And now she was his responsibility. What was he supposed to do with an alien princess? Because looking at her clothes and the way she carried herself, Jake was pretty sure that's what she was. This was way beyond anything they had taught him in the army. But first things first. He had to get her somewhere safe and warm. His cabin had a good first aid kit and a comfortable bed. He could figure out the rest later. Jake Miller had wanted a quiet, simple life in the mountains. It looked like those days were over.